welcome to a new show. This is inCINErated. It says it right up there. The movie review. I've started it well. The movie review show. I talk about movies. I rate them on a scale, and it's somewhat food related. Cause why not? Make it weird. So today, it's the inaugural episode. I'll give you a run through of what the episodes are gonna be like, and then we have two movies that we're gonna talk about today a little bit. We got on the menu A Quiet Place and Welcome to Marwen. The first two movies I watched for this show. The first, I think, like 3 episodes, back to back Fridays, and then it's gonna alternate with story time after that. So we'll get 6 movies out of the way right away, start getting the rankings all figured out, and then we'll move on from there. If there's any movies that you specifically want to see me watch and then review, you won't see me watch them, but I will review them. Put that down in the comments. I will be sure to watch it. I love movies. I will watch anything you give me, even if it's terrible. It'll just be lower on the scale than if it was a good one. So I guess we'll start out with... I'll just explain sort of how I'm going to review these movies. I'm not digging super deep into the story or anything like that. I'm not watching the movie frame by frame to be like, oh my god, he had a full glass in this frame and a half a glass in this frame. Points off right there. I'm watching the movie more to just be entertained, and also because movies, I love them, and I'm fascinated by filmmaking. There will be a little bit of that in there, but I'm mostly trying to just watch the movies without a bias, without anything. Like, if it's a movie of a book that I've already read, I'm not going to compare it to the book. I'm just going to look at it as a movie. Did it look good? Was it entertaining? Or did I hate it? You know, stuff like that. But, you know, I won't be perfect. There'll be things that really annoy me that most people wouldn't be annoyed by. There'll be things that I don't care about that most people would care a lot about. But that being said, this is the definitive thing. Like, nobody, this is it. This is it. Whatever I say goes. No, I'm kidding. I'll rank them on a scale of 1 to 100. We'll go over the rankings here in a minute. If you at all ever feel like I've ranked something too low or too high, let me know. We'll go back occasionally and I'll rewatch movies and I'll see if I want to change the ranking score of said movies. So let's get to the scale of ranking. We start all the way at the top. Movies that are really good. Anything from 100 to 90. That's the range. It's a scale of 100. Scale of 0 to 100. If it's a 0, my goodness, that's going to have to be a bad movie. We'll see if we ever get a 0. I don't think we will. But 0 to 100. Scale of 0 to 100. You're starting at the top. 100 down to 90. Those are golden brown movies. Where it's because it's incinerated, so like the further you get past good, you get more and more burnt up. You'll see what I'm talking about. So 100 to 90 is golden brown. Those movies, good movies, really good movies. Those are golden brown. You move on to 89 to 70. These movies are going to be heavily toasted. You've left it in just a little bit too long. It's got a little bit of char on it. There's just a bitterness in there, but it's not. They're still great movies. I'd recommend anything. Definitely in the top tier. Second tier, I'd still recommend them. Third tier, I'd probably recommend too. These anywhere from 69 to 50 are blackened, which can be good. There's cuisines where blackened is good. It could also be bad if you leave something in too long and it tastes. Ugh. You get that burnt in there. Oh goodness. So yeah, those movies I'd probably still recommend. Maybe any movie I watch I'd recommend, but I don't know. We move down 49 to 30. It's just overcooked. I mean, you've lost it at this point. It's gone. You messed something up. You're not bringing that back. It's overcooked. 29 to 20. I mean, that's burnt. You've overcooked it to the point it's just gone. That's burnt. Something's wrong with your movie. 19 to 10. These ones are absolutely scorched. Like, darn near the surface of the sun. You've done something wrong. You saw it was burning, and you kept going. Continuing to add heat to something that's already burnt is not going to help you. And then if we get anywhere from 9 to 0, those movies will be incinerated. I will incinerate them myself, because that's the name of the show, and also because mankind should not be subjected to anything that's that low on the scale. So if we ever get there, I will personally eradicate that movie from the world. Not really, because I don't have the power to do it, but I will try my hardest to incinerate all movies 9 to 0. So that is our grading scale for the movies that I'm going to watch. You've been told now how I'm going to look at them. So let's get right on in to our first movie, A Quiet Place. John Krasinski thriller, scary movie. I don't know how you want to classify it. I don't know how it was classified. But this list of movies that I'm watching right away are a bunch of movies that I had wanted to watch and then just never got around to. So I was like, oh, I'm making a show about movies. What movies did I want to see? Here we are. This one. Recently, I saw that they were making a second one. So we'll see how that goes. We start off, the way I'm going to do it, I'm going to start off with the good things. We'll hit you with the bad things, and then I'll round it up. We have one extra factor at the end that I'll talk about. And then I'll give you a score. 0 to 100. It'll get into a list of rankings. I'll tell you where it is on the list. You'll see where it is on the list. And then we will, that'll be it. And then we'll move on to the next movie, and then we'll be done with the episode. Hopefully they're not terribly long. Quick, hit you with the facts. This is what I like. This is what I didn't like. This is their score. Boom, they're on the list. So let's do it. A Quiet Place. Fascinating movie. Incredibly fascinating. With the sound. The sound was the craziest part. I mean, right from the beginning, my heart was like going nuts, because I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh, by the way, I didn't say at the beginning. I'm going to try as much as I possibly can to avoid spoilers, but sometimes things might just slip out a little bit, but I'm going to try as much as possible to avoid spoiling the movie, so that if you have not seen it and I then give it a great score and I recommend it to you, you can go watch it and tell me how stupid I am for ranking that so high and everything. But fascinating use of sound in this movie. The fact that there was essentially not much sound was incredibly, like, heart-racingly scary to me. That there was no sound. It's such an unnatural thing for us. I mean, like, I'm sitting here right now. I can hear my voice, but I can also hear, like, computers running and there's cars going by. And that background sound is something that I don't realize is always there, but when it's not there in this movie, it's so creepy. Like, I was just on the edge of my seat the whole time. And then in the movie, not really a spoiler, there is one character who's actually deaf. And when they're sort of in the perspective of that character, it's like no sound. Like, but before you can, like, hear footsteps and, like, breathing and stuff like that. Nothing crazy, though. With this character, it's like full silence, and it makes it even creepier. It's crazy. But then what they did with the sound as well is there's 2 points in the movie. I won't spoil for you what exactly they are, but there's 2 points where for like a minute or two, they go to like full sound. There's one of them, there's music, the other one, there's conversation. But it's crazy because it's like almost this like palate cleanser for your body. You're just like, oh, there's sound. I can relax, and then it just goes straight back to no sound. You're like, oh no, it's about to happen. Like, stuff is going down. It was an absolutely fascinating movie from that aspect. The sound, the play with it, and all that. I enjoyed it quite a bit. There was nothing crazy in it where I was like, well, that's just ridiculous. I mean, it was like a fictional world with monsters in it. The acting was great. I really enjoyed the acting. John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, the 2 children that I don't know the actors' names of, but they all did incredibly well. I enjoyed it, and it was an interesting movie in that, if I could remember correctly, there were 6 people in the entire movie, maybe 7. I think it was 6 though, like 6 people in the entire movie, which is interesting because a lot of movies, you know, you like see people in the background, you see people here and there, and There's a bunch of people, there's a bunch of characters to try and keep track of, main characters, side characters, all that stuff. But this was, I think there were literally 6 people in the movie, and then some monsters, but that's it. It was a fascinating movie. Moving on to the things that I didn't like as much, it was sort of hard for me to see sort of like backstory for it without talking, which is it's a hard thing to do, I would think, in a movie, is to sort of teach you and show you what this world already is and everything that's already happened in the world without the characters being able to talk to you. There were like newspaper clippings, and there was various other things you could see in the background and you could look at that sort of gave you an idea of what the world was, but you didn't get a great understanding for what that world was, which to some people wouldn't really matter that much. I like to know about the world and know stuff like that. So that was something for me that was, it was something where I was kind of like, this is cool, but I'd love to know more about the background of where this is and this universe and all that. It also seemed short to me, the movie did. It ended and I was like, is that it? That's all that I get? I mean, which is probably more of a testament to the film than anything negative against it, because it was that interesting that I just wanted so much more. And like I said, they're making a second one, I believe, so maybe that will be that'll be a great continuation to it and be what I'm looking for more of the story. I kind of thought watching it that it would have almost made a better TV show than it would have a movie, like an HBO show. You got your Game of Thrones and stuff like that, something like that. I think that would have been a really cool TV show. But hey, it was a movie. It was a great movie. I enjoyed it. It was kind of predictable as you went through it, but it was almost predictable in a way that made it scarier, because you were like, this is about to happen. Oh no, like, there's no sound. I'm getting ramped up for this to happen. But it was just like, I was on the edge of my seat the entire movie. And I don't hate. I'm not a fan of scary movies. I don't often watch scary movies just because it's not an emotion that I like to put myself through. But hey, those are some things that I liked and didn't like about the movie. That's where we start with all the movies. Now we move into something I like to call the note factor. The note factor. I can speak English. The note factor. When I watch the movies, I take notes. Just because I'm an idiot and that's how I like to do things. Just so as I go back through, I can look at sort of how I was feeling as the movie went along. Sometimes I put in timestamps. Sometimes I just write my general feelings about the movie. This one I actually, at the end, wrote down a bunch of stuff so that I remembered what I was thinking about. Because I watched this like 3-4 months ago, so I now know what I was feeling. But in my experience of taking notes with movies, generally, the more notes I take, the less interesting the movie was, and the worse in general the movie was. There's sort of a correlation between how many notes I have and how interesting the movie was. This one's a solid one. I only got about half a page of notes to this one, and they're fairly spread out. They included stuff like, oh my god, my heart is already on edge. That was one of the first notes, all in caps. I don't like this no sound to sound thing that freaks me out. Straight up freaks me out. And then I guess there was a heartbeat at some point that I felt was too fast, but I don't know. Those were the notes I had for that one, but as far as notes go, it was only half a page, which means I was fairly invested in the movie. I wasn't stopping much to write things down. So overall, I really enjoyed the movie. It was fascinating from just like a thriller, get your heartbeat going movie. It was fascinating from a filmmaking standpoint, with the sound being crazy and used incredibly well. So, without further ado, you may have seen it when I held up the note page. I gave this one an 88 out of 100, which puts it right at the top of Heavily Toasted. They just missed Golden Brown. I think the fact that it felt a little short and that I didn't get enough world development out of it, just in the watch through I did, brought it down just a little bit, but I still think it was a great movie. And it was I only watched it once, so watching it a second or third time could give me more of that world building that I was looking for in this one. But for almost all these movies, I'm going to watch them once because I don't have time to watch them 3 or 4 times and nitpick everything, and I don't want to. I want to watch the movie, enjoy it, and then move on. So 88 out of 100, that puts it at number 1 on the list because it's the only thing on the list. So yeah. A Quiet Place, 88 out of 100. Heavily toasted. Let's move on to another alum of The Office, Steve Carell, and welcome to Marwen. Steve Carell, by the way, just throwing this out there at the beginning, is my favorite actor. He's incredibly fascinating in the fact that I feel, is almost himself in every role he plays, but is different. Like, he just turns up little aspects of his personality and becomes a different person. Welcome to Marwen. Another movie I really enjoyed. Another fascinating movie, but this time on a visual standpoint rather than A Quiet Place was on more of a audio standpoint. This one, visually, the transition between the real world and, like, the toy world in this one, crazy. I remember when I saw the first trailer for it, I was like, that looks awesome. Just, I mean, it's almost, I feel like, this is me not knowing anything, it's almost maybe easier to do those because you can take some liberties with the toys. Like, they don't have to look like people. Whereas movies where they try and put CG characters in that look weird and you're like, that's maybe a little too much. This one, you didn't have that as much because they're toys, so you're not looking at it going, this doesn't look like a human. Obviously, it doesn't look like a human. It's a toy. So that was another fascinating filmmaking side of things. Just the transition between the toys and the real world, and the way, not as much more story based, the way you sort of got an idea of how he was thinking through the toys. I don't want to say too much and spoil anything, but I really loved the visuals in this movie. The way you got to see everything, and the way the toys showed you sort of how he was thinking without... Because that's a hard thing to do in movies, is show thoughts, other than like, oh, let's do a flashback so you can see what they're thinking, or if they say it out loud. In movies, that's a hard thing to do. And that was a cool way to do it with the toys that way. Another one that I marked down here as something I liked. I just love Steve. I love Steve Carell. He's awesome. Amazing. Again, his acting, incredible in this movie. His ability to sort of snap between somebody who almost seems like they're in their right mind to somebody going insane is awesome in this movie. And he did, I think, a great job in this movie of acting. On the flip side, from A Quiet Place, this movie felt a little long to me. It wasn't, it was sort of slow. It was a lot less of that action-y, punch, kick, entertainment, thriller thing, and a lot more of, let's develop a story and tell you this story and affect your emotions in more of a heartfelt way, rather than like, oh my goodness, that was a crazy explosion, that was exciting. Which is awesome too. I mean, you want to watch different kinds of movies. Like, if you always watch the same, like, punch them in the face, blow things up movies, they're gonna get old after a while. This was a nice, different kind of movie. And it had the action, when you cut to the toy scenes, there was still that action, and there was still that, you get the explosions, and you get the fights and stuff like that. But it was sort of layered into this other different story that was more heartfelt and less like, oh, we punched him in the face, that was awesome. So that was awesome. In watching it, I was more fascinated from a filmmaking standpoint than an entertainment standpoint. Like, it was a slower thing. It was a slower movie. It was a slower story. It developed in a different way that, like I said, an action movie would, or like a horror movie would. But it was still an incredibly interesting movie. I loved it. I couldn't look away. If we go to the notes page, I think I even had less notes for this one than I did for A Quiet Place. They included, already very interesting, that was 3 minutes and 40 seconds into the movie. I don't know if that was a great point to decide if it was interesting or not, but it was already interesting at that point. At this point, it seems like it could be 20 to 30 minutes shorter. That was almost an hour into the film, so at that point already, I thought they could maybe have condensed some stuff. Why is this lawyer a big dick? Okay, that was another one. So, I mean, overall, though, not many notes at all. So it means I was crazy invested in the story and actually watching it, and I was. I didn't really want to look away. I also wrote here, usually when you watch a Steve Carell movie or Steve in a TV show or something, I have those, at least I do, I have those moments where he says something a certain way or he does something a certain way where I'm like, that's absolutely Steve Carell. Like, he does things exactly like that, and he did it again here. This one, there was only 1 or 2 moments where I was like, oh yeah, that's Steve Carell. Like, I've been taken out of it a little bit, and I don't think that affected it in any way. Like, I had those moments where I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I'm watching Steve Carell right now. He's the one and not who he's playing. But overall, great job by Steve. Great movie. I put it at, drumroll please, a 79 out of 100. Also heavily toasted, in the same category as A Quiet Place, just a touch lower. It'll go number 2 on the list for now, because there's only 2 movies on the list. Yeah, but 2 great movies. I would recommend both of them for everybody to watch. I enjoyed. This was the first episode. I mean, 2 good movies right off the bat. 2 fascinating movies with the sound and the visuals. So that's where we start. We've set some high marks to start off the show here. Come back next time. This is the end of the show, by the way, if you hadn't noticed. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If I ranked either of these too high or too low, let me know. Let me know what you thought about the movies, too. I'd love to know if you thought one of them was more interesting than I thought they were, or one of them was less interesting than I thought they were. And like I said, if you have any movies you want me to watch, throw them down in the comments as well. This was episode 1 of inCINErated. Come back next week, next Friday, where we have episode 2. I'm not exactly sure what movies it'll be next week, but I'm sure they'll be good, or they won't be. We'll find out, and that's why I'm here, to tell you if they're good or not, right? So thank you for watching. See you again next week. Cut. Is that how I should end it? Oh, actually, hold on. Oh, yeah, I left it over there somewhere. I've got one of the thingies, but doesn't matter. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace out.